I am the good-for-nothing head senior disciple, despised by the entire order. In reality, however, my true identity is that of a secret energy vessel, a cauldron that relies on others to cultivate. I specifically target those with high cultivation levels to harvest energy from: the spoiled, venom-breeding junior disciple, the naturally gifted head sword disciple, and the bloodthirsty demon lord. I even laid my hands on the high and mighty sect master, Elias Frost. After every session of energy harvesting, I would gift each of them a petal of a jade lotus. This continued until the Grand Immortal Tournament. My junior disciple, Julian Reed, took out his jade lotus petal to show off his beloved. The faces of everyone sitting in the high seats suddenly darkened. Meanwhile, I sat in my seat, peacefully eating pastries. After all, I am just the useless Luke Anderson. The atmosphere right now was incredibly tense. Master Frost, sitting at the highest seat, and the head sword disciple in the second seat both were staring dead at the jade lotus petal in Julian's hand. The head sword disciple, Isaac Sterling, slowly pulled an identical petal from his chest pocket. His voice was cold. "Are you talking about this?" Julian immediately blew his top. He pointed at the petal, his eyes wide with rage. "How do you have one too?" "Foxy gave this to me right after we finished cuddling." As he spoke, he seemed to realize something. He flew into a rage, ready to fight Isaac right there. Just as swords were drawn and bows were bent, a sound of arrogant laughter came from the distance. The demon lord, Damien Pyre, arrived walking on air. Everyone's attention was drawn to him. Hanging at the demon lord's waist was also a jade lotus petal. Suddenly, the wariness in Isaac and Julian's eyes toward the demon lord vanished. It was replaced only by the hatred of a romantic rival. No one noticed that Master Frost, sitting at the highest position, was also tightly clutching a jade lotus petal in his hand. And I, at this moment, was silently eating watermelon, watching this farce unfold with complete peace of mind. The four of them looked at each other. The highly respected Master Frost was the first to speak. "We should work together to find him first." I scoffed internally. Elias Frost was the best at pretending. In his mind, he was probably calculating how to kill all of them. Junior disciple Julian Reed looked brimming with disbelief. His eyes were full of sadness. "But Foxy said he only dual cultivated with me." The corners of the mouths of the other three twitched. They spoke in turn. "He said that to me too." "Me too, too." The atmosphere fell into a dead silence again. Demon Lord Damien Pyre lowered his eyes, sweeping his gaze over the other three. His voice was low and icy. "When I find him, I will lock him to my bed day and night. If he tries to run, I'll break his legs." Isaac, clutching his sword, nodded slightly. Master Frost turned his head and called my name. "Luke Anderson." I hurriedly wiped the pastry crumbs from my mouth. I walked over with a submissive, lowered gaze. In our order, I became the head senior disciple thanks to my family relationship with the headmaster. Usually, I was just responsible for some daily logistical work. My aptitude was very poor. I hadn't even succeeded in Anedia giving up food. It wasn't that I couldn't succeed, it was just that I was too gluttonous. I simply couldn't hold out. I knew they looked down on me. Events like the Grand Immortal Tournament were none of my business. Proper cultivation is too bitter. It's much more comfortable to harvest energy from others. I stood to the side, listening to Master Frost's instructions. "Luke, write down all the characteristics they describe. Find him even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground." I obediently agreed, taking out a recording stone to start documenting. So Julian Reed started describing first. "He is very beautiful, with a small mole on his eyebrow. There is a beautiful red floral pattern on his inner thigh. I think it's some kind of flower." The other three obviously held back their displeasure as they listened. "Also, his feet are so white." "No, wait, he is white everywhere, like he's made of jade. He leaves red marks with just a pinch." Listening to this made my face heat up. Julian breeds goo venom bugs. I was always terrified of being tracked by his bugs. Every time, while enduring back pain, I had to check myself to make sure I hadn't been invaded by a goo beetle. Fortunately, I was cautious every time. The face I showed them was always an illusion. Only the body was my real body. After all, the effects of energy harvesting are better when using one's own body. Next, the genius headsword disciple spoke concisely. "Little rabbit, very cute, no mole. Peony flower, very pretty. He really loved gnawing on my vessel mark with his mouth. He wouldn't stop until he sucked it red every time." I turned my head away, thinking about how the usually cold Isaac Sterling got hot everywhere once he was in bed. I couldn't help but reminisce, sigh. He was still the best, talked little, performed well. Next, the demon lord spoke, black aura emitting from his face, suspected to be mad with rage. He looks like a fox, upturned eyes, very cunning. Loves to play hide and seek with me. There's a peony flower between his legs too, and his chest is very pink. Every time I harvested from Damien, I felt like he was a child, because he really loves milk. Finally, the high and mighty Elias Frost began to speak. His eyes droop slightly. His pupils are bright like a deer's. There is a peony flower between his legs, very white, and there is a mole at the junction of his buttocks and thigh. Because I lived near Master Frost, it was convenient to come and go, and Elias didn't like using toys. He was quite an honest man in that regard, so I harvested from him quite often. Thinking back, it took a lot of effort to pull this high flower down from his altar. The four of them suppressed their anger, if I were really found out. They would definitely start a great war. They finally concluded. Every face was an illusion created by Foxy. Only the body is his own. We must start the search from the body. Master Frost swept a light glance over me. Luke, did you understand? 5 days. I want to see the person. I nodded miserably. Do I really have to pull down everyone's pants one by one to find the person? They just know how to exploit me. I hunched my back and slouched away silently. The moment I was about to leave, Demon Lord Damien suddenly called out to stop me. Are you the son of the Green Lotus Sword Fairy? I turned around, still hunching my back. Yes, my mother is Lady Serena. Yes, my mother is the headmaster's cousin. Relied on this relationship, I was able to become the head senior disciple. It's just that my talent is really not good, but I don't care. I can increase my cultivation after harvesting energy and eventually increase my lifespan. As the saying goes, enjoy life while you can. Damien tusked lightly and said, Your mother was considered a peerless beauty in the cultivation world. Why do you look so pathetic? Actually, I am quite good looking, but compared to my mother. Okay, I indeed didn't inherit such glamorous looks. This time, in order not to expose myself, I specifically used illusions to alter some outstanding features, making myself look more plain. The face is still that face, but it became unnoticeable among people. I knew Damien Pyre hated cowering people the most, so I quickly nodded and bowed. My mother indeed had the grace of an immortal. He withdrew his gaze in boredom, looking at the floor dully. Julian called out to Damien with dissatisfaction. Do you want to find Foxy or not? Isaac Sterling also swept a light glance over me. He specifically paused on my body. I hunched my back, revealing nothing. He quickly withdrew his gaze. In the eyes of such a genius sword cultivator, I was just a speck of dust. Besides, the sword art he practiced required man and sword as one. He couldn't see others at all. Actually, facing Isaac's face was more dangerous, as he had seen my body the most, so I successfully retreated. I walked to the mountain peak where my barrier was located. Only then did I drop the micro-adjustments on my face and the hunched posture. I entered the room. I tossed the recording stone onto the table, carefully took off my clothes, opened my legs slightly to look at the peony pattern on my left inner thigh. With the increase in the number of partners and frequency of harvesting, it would become more and more vivid, eventually blooming completely. I picked up the potion from the drawer that could secretly cover the vessel marks, carefully applied it to the pattern. The pattern quickly disappeared completely, along with the mole on my buttocks. I held a small mirror in one hand and dipped the ointment with the other, applying it carefully. My arms were tired from reaching back. I couldn't help but complain about Elias Frost in my heart, blamed him for loving to lick everywhere. He knew exactly what was where. I absolutely could not expose even a bit of skin. With just one look, they would recognize me. My limbs are slender, but the flesh is soft. Especially the thin layer on my stomach. It always easily shows its shape. I carefully put on my trousers, tightened my belt, and pulled up my shoes, striving to be perfect in every detail, arching my waist and hunching my back. I became that good-for-nothing senior Luke of the Order again. Even though I knew the person was me, I had to put on a show, so I started screening people. To prevent anyone from changing their body shape, I specifically placed an imaging stone nearby. Anyway, my disguise was in my posture, hunching and slouching. I wasn't afraid of the imaging. First, exclude the disciples with bulging muscles, then the disciples with dark skin. Even slightly yellow skin wouldn't do. Also excluded all female disciples. And those too short, too tall, or with uneven figures. There were a dozen or so delicate and tender men left. Most of them looked at me with ignorant and innocent eyes. Among them, a pair of lively eyes stood out particularly. I recognized him, Skylar Summer, the youngest son of the inner Sect elder. His two eyes rolled around, suspected bad ideas generating. It seems that this time he didn't just want to be a suspect. He wanted to become Foxy. I said, good in my heart. Perfect, I wanted to leave this place anyway. At that time, if I make a mistake and get kicked down the mountain, wouldn't I be able to continue finding people to harvest? I heard that the monk from the Buddhist sect looks quite nice. I was calculating in my heart. But I still had to let Skylar Summer know Foxy's characteristics first. I sent a cup of tea to the remaining people, comforting them. Don't worry, just checking everyone's inner thighs. We are all fellow male disciples. There will absolutely be no other behavior. After speaking, I took 3 inspection disciples into the room. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Skylar Summer sneaking up behind. My heart rejoiced. He took the bait. Seemingly talking to the inspection disciples, I was actually dropping hints entirely for Skylar. That Foxy has a peony flower on his inner thigh. Maybe the cauldron records in the library will have it. Everyone go consult that first. Come back for inspection later. The classic vessel patterns in the library indeed had my type. But that was the type harvested by others. Mine was a mutated peony. The tails of the petals and leaves were purple. I figured Skylar would copy the pattern faster than they could. I stepped out of the courtyard gate, but I ran into the junior disciple, who plays with goo bugs at the door. Julian Reed glanced at me, tossing a brown cicada-like thing in his hand, asking casually, "How goes the investigation?" I said carefully, "We are currently going to the library to find vessel marks. There might be similar ones." Julian nodded slightly and ordered, "Take me to see the people." Although the junior disciple is younger than me, the power behind him is huge. The Venom Sect and Medicine Valley are allied by marriage, backed by an ascended grandmaster. I couldn't afford to offend Julian. I maintained my cautious and cowardly persona, obediently leading the way in front. Those few boys were waiting in the courtyard. After Julian swept a glance, he paused. He suddenly turned to look at me. The brown cicada in his hand was clenched tightly. He narrowed his eyes with suspicion. "We never said he was a man. How did you know?" In an instant, my cold sweat was about to come down. I twitched the corner of my mouth, stammering and unable to speak. Julian scoffed, holding the cicada. "Don't force me to use the truth goo on you." I squeezed out a harmless smile. "I saw a portrait of a man in Master Frost's room before. It must be the person you want." "Junior brother, please don't tell Master Frost." I lowered my eyes and mumbled. "He dislikes others entering his room the most." This excuse perfectly explained why I was so nervous. Julian was still young and didn't have that many intricate thoughts. He didn't see anything wrong with me. He nodded and pulled my face teasingly. "A good-for-nothing like you better not be hiding someone, otherwise, 9 lives won't be enough for you to die." I nodded vigorously, looking honest. My fingers couldn't stop shaking from tension. Say I still have to shift this blame to someone else quickly. I looked at the triumphant Skylar Summer in the crowd. It's all up to him soon, according to the process. People went in one by one, took off their trousers, and covered their key parts with cloth. Then checked the legs for patterns. Soon, it was Skylar Summer's turn. I cast a hopeful gaze on him. Because of my understanding of these 4 men, they are all the same kind of stubborn. They definitely won't share with others. The first thing after finding the person is not to check, but to fight for ownership. Taking this opportunity, it was the perfect time for me to run away. A cry of surprise came from inside the house. A disciple stumbled and ran towards me. "Senior Luke, we found him." Although I was at peace in my heart, I looked anxious on the surface. "Quickly go inform Master Frost why tell me," the disciple hesitated. As if he wanted me to go, but I interrupted his thoughts with a shout. "Go quickly," he hastily agreed and ran away. Skylar Summer came out of the door with a flushed face. His clothes were neat, his eyes were shining, and he said shyly, I didn't want them to fight over me either." I twitched the corner of my mouth but still cupped my hands in compliment. "It is your heavenly beauty that makes those 4 unable to forget you." After speaking, I bowed and retreated quickly. I felt their aura rushing over. Retreating into the darkness, I saw them frantically surrounding Skylar Summer. I didn't look any further. I quickly ran to where the disciples were gathered. I spotted that disciple who always secretly mocked me. If not take revenge now, then when? I am not an honorable person. Using dirty tricks, I didn't care about anything else. If I couldn't win in a fair fight, I'd smash him to death with artifacts. Beams of magical light came from the distance. the four of them started fighting. And I, with frost on my fist, punched that disciple in the face. I didn't forget to add a kick to his crotch. All the disciples saw it. I ran after hitting him, running to the headmaster to plead guilty. Disciple Luke Anderson acted on impulse and beat a fellow junior brother. I am willing to be punished. The headmaster was an old immortal with a beard and wind-swept bones. He was still worrying about the four fighting in the divine firmament sect. Looking at me, he just poked my forehead a few times with his finger. You if you want to fight, find a place with no one around. It's not like I would really investigate. I knew he didn't want to punish me. Even now, he would choose to laugh it off and just confine me for a few days. He was the person who treated me like family. I raised my eyes and didn't call him headmaster anymore. Uncle Artie, this time you must punish me, and it has to be the punishment of being expelled down the mountain. The headmaster looked up at the people fighting in the sky. He turned his head and sighed at me again. He saw through something. He said to me, "You be careful not to get caught." He reached out and took a magical artifact from his own spirit pouch. "Take this. It's a heaven-grade artifact. They won't be able to find you." I beamed and reached out to take it. No need to be polite with my own uncle. As I left, I heard Uncle Artie's long sigh. "How did you inherit your mother's ability to be such a calamitous beauty?" A notice was published within a few quarters of an hour while they were fighting. Head disciple Luke Anderson beat a fellow disciple. Given the severity of the situation, he is punished to train down the mountain for 3 years. Walking on the road, I heard the mockery of the disciples who usually couldn't stand me. "Seems like your relative doesn't treat you that well either." I snorted lightly and waved my fist. "I don't care about adding another charge." The whole place went quiet. I shouldered the bundle I had packed long ago. Inside were some clothes and storybooks. The spirit pouch containing the artifact was still hanging at my waist. I packed up quickly, trying to stay as far away from the central battlefield as possible. I carefully walked down the small path in the mountains. Only when the fighting figures over there gradually disappeared did I finally breathe a sigh of relief, although I was still a little uneasy in my heart. But overall, I felt safer. I used to be playful and always went to the small town at the foot of the mountain to buy storybooks and snacks. Now I still had some silver coins on me. Anyway, if I run out, I'll exchange spirit stones for money. That stuff is very valuable in the mortal world. The cultivation world established a strict rule. Sword flying is not allowed in the mortal world. Helplessly, I could only spend money to buy a mule. The mule moved leisurely ahead, and I sat leisurely reading my storybook. The towns below the Sect's mountain appeared one after another. Lights connected the mountain paths and villages. Just as the sky turned slightly dark, I swaggered into the next village. Unexpectedly, the information spread faster than I imagined. I was eating the 8-treasure roast goose at the inn and drinking sake. The guest at the next table started gossiping loudly. "The Divine Firmament Sect is not peaceful today. I heard that the young master of the Venom Sect, the genius sword cultivator, the unforgivable demon lord, and that high and mighty immortal master. They are all looking for one person," his companion retorted. "Didn't the latest news say they found him? Brother, you are 2 behind." That brother spat at his companion. "You are the one who's behind. That person was a fake." After the 4 of them fought for half a day, they realized something was wrong with the person and let him escape. Saying that, the brother pointed to the portrait next to him. "Look for yourself. This was pasted in every town by disciples using priceless teleportation talismans. It's this person. He looks quite innocent. How could he?" I turned my head to look, and the roast goose on my chopsticks fell with a snap. "Isn't that me up there?" I knew going down the mountain at this time was a bit conspicuous, but I thought I could at least fool them for 3 days. How come it hasn't even been a day? Fortunately, when I left the mountain gate, I created an illusion for this face. I quickly asked the shopkeeper to pack the rest of the roast goose. Returned to the superior room I stayed in and dug around in my spirit pouch for a long time. Only then did I find the 1,000-mile teleportation talisman that Isaac Sterling gave me before. I looked pained. If there was really no other way, I wouldn't want to use this. It was super expensive. I left the mule for the shopkeeper and ignited the teleportation talisman with spiritual power. In the blink of an eye, I was teleported thousands of miles away. I shook my dizzy head and stood in front of a city gate. On the huge plaque above, it was written Moon City. I had read journals introducing this place. The tea shortbread here is the most famous, with a faint tea fragrance mixed with layers of flaky dough. In the middle, there is also a small piece of seasoned butter from the West. I excitedly went to the store and bought a plate. There weren't many customers in this shop, but it was quite poetic. Everyone had to leave their alias. When it was ready, the waiter would call the alias and let the customer pick it up themselves. I heard it was because the plate was mixed with tea scent, leaving a tea smell on the customer's fingers. Quite interesting. I wrote down the alias Foxy. Incidentally, I sat down in the shop to drink osmanthus wine. This stuff tastes even better with tea shortbread. Not long after, a waiter's voice pierced the clouds. "Customer Foxy, your tea shortbread is ready." I shuddered and quickly stood up to get it. Suddenly, a deep voice appeared from behind. "Foxy," I smiled and said "I." Suddenly realizing something was wrong, I turned my head stiffly to take a look. Oh my good lord, how did Isaac follow me like a ghost? Denying it now would be useless. I turned around and ran. Though running was impossible against him, so the leg that took half a step stopped instantly. I turned around to face Isaac's face with the resolve of death. The ice blocks in his eyes seemed to be stained with dark fire. I gathered my courage and shouted, "What doesn't kill me makes me stronger. So, can you let me finish my tea shortbread before letting me go?" Isaac swept a light glance at me and tied my hand to his with red sand silk. He turned and took away my tea shortbread along with the plate. Left a spirit stone behind and took me away. I stumbled and followed behind him, asking somewhat doubtfully, "Just you alone?" Isaac asked back in a cold voice, "Who else do you want to come?" Hearing this, I breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, no one, I only want you." Isaac snorted lightly and said faintly, "Full of lies, those flowers you touched, the grass you provoked." I quickly interrupted him. "I am a vessel, hey, don't expect me to have only you." Isaac suddenly stopped. I leaned over to look at him, only to see his eyes turning red. The magnificent genius sword cultivator had never been this fragile. Tears were swirling in his eyes. I felt quite uncomfortable and said fiercely, "Don't think crying is useful. I won't become cultivation partners with you. What one pair for a lifetime, forget it." Isaac reached out and pinched my cheek, pulled it gently. "I know, it's fine as long as you're trapped by my side for this lifetime." After speaking, he tightened the red silk binding my wrist. Activated a teleportation talisman, took me to a cave. The place looked dark and desolate from the outside, but it was very different inside. The cave was covered with plush carpets, light gauze curtains hung over the stone bed, and thick gold thread mattresses were laid on top. It looked just like a place to imprison a golden canary. Isaac pulled open my belt, his fingers touching from bottom to top. The corners of my eyes were flushed red. I turned my head slightly. "Isaac, you can't keep me for long." Isaac chuckled lightly, his eyes actually carrying a bit of madness. "My wife loves to flirt too much. He should be taught a lesson." It wasn't until midnight that I got to eat the tea shortbread, and I ate it while crying. For the next 3 days and 3 nights, I finally understood what a single-use tool meant. He never thought about sustainable development. My constitution as a vessel was about to make me throw up. I was unconscious until noon on the 4th day. I felt a burst of bumping, struggling to wake up from unconsciousness. I was being carried on Julian's shoulder, my naked body wrapped only in a quilt. I was so scared I hugged his neck immediately. I cursed loudly. "Are you sick? Who taught you to steal people like this?" Julian ran fast, sounding pitiful. "I was hiding at the door yesterday. I finally found a chance while that brat Isaac left for a moment." Saying that, he got angry again. "That brat played you. His 1,000-mile teleportation talisman teleports you to Moon City no matter where you are." I was speechless for a long time. Sure enough, I shouldn't use these people's things. A figure was chasing quickly from behind. It was Isaac. He was as angry as a dragon whose treasure had been stolen. I looked down at Julian. "Didn't you say 9 lives aren't enough for me to die? Why don't you take my first life?" Julian was still whining while running. "Foxy, I was wrong. How could I want your life? You've already hooked my life away." I rolled my eyes. Rested my head on Julian's shoulder. I was getting sleepy again. Julian insisted on chattering in my ear. "That beast, look at the marks on your body, Foxy. I feel so green right now." I was so annoyed I reached out my white lotus root-like arm and slapped his head. "Shut up if you don't want to back out." I enjoyed it. He stopped talking, just moved even more steadily. I nodded off a few times and fell asleep with a snap when I woke up again. The situation had undergone earth-shaking changes. They all found us. Elias and Damien were standing on the left and right in front, eyeing us covetously. Isaac caught up from behind, cutting off the retreat completely. And I was still lying on Julian's shoulder. The quilt was still wrapped tightly. Seeing I was awake, Damien looked straight at me. His eyes were full of danger. "Little fox, come over here yourself and I won't hold a grudge. Otherwise, I'll skin you tonight." My body shuddered subconsciously. Provoking the demon lord was the most absurd thing I had ever done. Blame his face for being too handsome. I didn't dare look and buried myself silently in Julian's shoulder. A cold voice came from my ear. "Luke, come here." Every time Master Frost called me for something, it was this tone and this attitude. I was a bit conditioned. Even in bed it was. "Foxy, lift higher." I looked up at Elia's gentle brows. He seemed the safest, but based on my understanding of him, it would be miserable. Okay, actually, falling into the hands of any one of them, my butt would bloom, thought and thought again. Isaac behind me was also approaching step by step. I looked at Julian, who was pinching my thigh. His brows were full of murderous aura, looking warily at the three people surrounding us. He didn't forget to act pitiful and coquettish with me. Skylar using nickname, "I love you the most." "I won't be excessive, just come with me, okay?" I twitched the corner of my mouth. If I go with this guy, a goo bug would be planted in me immediately. The choice with the least freedom. Sigh, my waist was still sore. I looked at the four faces and suddenly said to Elias, "Shouldn't you be disappointed? The person you long for is me." Elias stunned, then pursed his lips. "No matter who you are, I love you, I regret." Listening to him go on. I turned to look at Damien. "Didn't you say I look boring? Why are you so serious?" As a vessel, I really can't understand. Wasn't it all consensual? Why be so serious? Why not let me go? I sighed lightly. Damien's face stiffened. "Luke, I never liked your appearance. Just because it's you," Julian scoffed. "Skylar, he only knows sweet talk, he must just be bewildered by your appearance. Unlike me, who loves Skylar's inner self." Demon Lord Damien looked at Julian with heavy murderous intent. He attacked directly. Julian bounced away with me to dodge. If we talk about this aspect, probably only Isaac is the most likable. Isaac seemed to know what I was thinking. He took a step forward and gently pulled the red silk on my hand. "In my eyes, apart from Foxy, everyone else is air. I didn't mean to hurt you." Characteristics of a sword cultivator. I looked at the unwilling expressions of the four. I lowered my eyes. There was only one way. Let them fight among themselves. Only one winner. Then I would have a chance to escape. I patted Julian's shoulder, asked Isaac for the spirit pouch back. I finally put on clothes. I looked at Julian, who was looking at me with puppy eyes. "Sigh, pity you," but I still announced ruthlessly. "You guys fight, whoever wins, I go with." Julian plays with goo. He has little combat power. Here, it means he is definitely eliminated. I thought there would be a scene of swords and shadows. The scene of Julian crying for his parents did not appear either. Instead, every face was incredibly calm. Julian spoke first. "I just put the lover's goo on Skylar. If he dies, I die. If I live, he lives." Saying that, he revealed a wicked smile. "If he belongs to someone else, isn't martyrdom a good choice?" On the other side, the indifferent Isaac spoke calmly. "A few days ago, Luke and I recognized the master of the ancient artifact Danzi. He cannot leave me." My fingers trembled uncontrollably. Shit. I was wondering why my fingers suddenly hurt that night. Isaac, this bastard, took my blood. The ancient artifact Danzi bound two people together alive. Only death can separate them. My voice shaking, I turned to look at the remaining two. "And you?" They were visibly annoyed. The smile Elias used to deceive me on his face was gone. "The first night we were together, the ancient text I made you read was actually an ancient contract. If you insist on leaving, heaven will send down punishment." Demon Lord Damien scoffed. "Foxy, I gave you the demon race's most special essence long ago. We have to do it once a month or you will die." My gaze went blank. Looking at these four people who were gradually standing together, I swallowed and asked carefully, "Is there any way to undo them?" The four were unmoved. I was incredibly anxious. "Don't you want to be one pair for a lifetime with me?" Elias, with a cold face, stated a fact. "You just want to reap the benefits without sowing. We already know you are a philandering Foxy." Julian lowered his eyelashes and muttered to himself, "4 people should be enough for Foxy to eat." Damien swept a faint glance at the three. "We can only distribute. This lord has never shared with anyone before." Saying that, he looked at me. "Foxy, you must be punished." Isaac kept his ice block face, expressing his opinion concisely. "I want the middle of the month." The future was pitch black. I wanted to struggle one last time, trying to spread the rain and do evenly to reduce punishment. Facts proved useless. I was taken back to the Divine Firmament Sect. Not in my original room, but living on Elias Mountain Peak. Restrictions were placed there. Only those four could enter. With the increasing dual cultivation, my cultivation level actually rose with the tide, reaching the golden core stage. Master Frost gently touched my head. Looking at my flushed face, he smiled gently. "Skylar, isn't this nice?" I shrank my stomach, which was almost spasming, nodding while crying. The door was banged on. Julian's loud voice came. "It's my turn, give me back my Skylar." Elias pressed against my ear and asked me, "Do you want to leave?" I couldn't hear clearly, only caring about crying. I agreed to whatever he asked. Nodding blindly only brought more severe punishment. Time passed like flowing water. On the second year's Festival of Lovers, I begged for a long time. Only then did I get the chance to go down the mountain. The village was decorated with lanterns and festoons. I was excitedly guessing lantern riddles. Couldn't answer, so Elias smiled and reminded me from the side. I was so annoyed my face turned red. Turning my head, Julian was excitedly asking me to eat a candied hawthorn stick. The indifferent Isaac and the demon lord held 2 rabbit lanterns in their hands. The orange lantern light fell on my smiling face. All right, this isn't bad either. That day on the river lantern, I solemnly wrote down a wish. May every year be like today. End of main text. Male lead perspective 1. I am the young master of the Venom Sect. I have seen countless beauties in this life. But I can never forget Foxy from the first glance. The first time I met Foxy was in a tea house. He was lazily drinking tea, listening to storytelling. He swept a clear glance at me. How could such lively eyes have a mole above them? At that time, an urge to lick welled up in my heart, like a wild beast. I took the initiative to ask him, "What tea are you drinking?" Foxy chuckled lightly, handed me the tea he had drunk from. I drank it down in a hurry. It seemed to still have the taste of his sweet water on it. How could I miss an inexperienced, embarrassing boy so much? Blushing, I asked him his name. He said, "Just call me Foxy." I responded blankly. We became friends. Since childhood, they were all afraid of me. Afraid of me playing with ugly goo bugs. Afraid of me manipulating them with goo bugs. But Foxy wasn't like that. So at that time I thought, I will never use bugs on Foxy in this life, calling it friendship. But I always viewed it with the mindset of love. Our first time was naturally logical. When it ended, he gave me a jade lotus petal. I was full of emotion, only thinking about being with him forever and ever. Male lead perspective 2. As a sword cultivator. My heart only holds the sword. Sword intent is forged in the boundless ice and snow. Loneliness is a constant companion, until a dumpling-like figure appeared in the vast snowy field. I took this rabbit back to the cave. Suddenly, a fluffy thing appeared in the cold cave. I seemed to have something to look forward to when returning, a taste that couldn't be explained. I tried hard to raise this little rabbit. It was very cute. It would stick to me when sleeping. It was warm and alive. The long life with only the sword seemed to become meaningful, until one day the rabbit's body suddenly heated up. I was incredibly anxious, transferred spiritual power into him. As a result, the next second, with a poof, the rabbit turned into a young man. The young man opened his round pupils, so white, like jade. The rabbit's heat cycle had arrived, his white lotus root like arms wrapped around my neck. I gently kissed the only vitality in my life. I will never let you go. Because without you, I would soon perish along with my sword. Male lead perspective 3. As the youngest demon lord in history, I felt this world was too boring. Every day was killing, killing, killing. Why weren't there any interesting people for me to play with? Then Foxy appeared. When I saw him, he was pulling out a knife stuck in a burly man. His eyes were fierce. A few drops of blood splashed on his cheek. The tail of his brow raised slightly, just like a cunning fox. This was a lawless place. Countless desperados would rape him to death. I don't know why either. Probably his eyes aroused a compassion I hadn't felt in hundreds of years. I reached out my hand and said to this little fox, "Do you want to come with me?" So I got a silent little guard. He always stared at me blankly. Demon brothers jokingly patted my shoulder. He would actually stand righteously in front of me, standing up for me, standing up. What a strange and heartwarming word. In this life, only he stood up for me. Falling in love with him was an easy thing to begin with, just like a raised pet, focusing all attention wholeheartedly on you. How could I not like this feeling of being relied on? I only saved you once. How did you give your heart to me? Let me return the favor. Reluctantly, let me give my heart and love to this little fox too. Male lead perspective 4. It is lonely at the top. Standing in a high position, the identity of Master Frost carried too many responsibilities. Actually, I hated Foxy at first. He was a very frivolous person. I saved him in the demon cave, and I was completely entangled. His constant chatter was annoying. Having to shoulder the responsibility of protecting him was also annoying. He was trouble itself. So most of the time, I treated him with an indifferent attitude, but he became braver with every setback. Don't know where he picked the small flowers to give me. Don't know where he heard the stories to tell me. When it got dark, he would be scared and ask me to light a lamp for him. When it thundered, he wanted to crawl into my blanket to find a sense of security. Cultivators don't need to sleep. That night, however, I inexplicably lay on the bed, handed him an arm to hug. Actually, things started to get out of control from here, but I didn't notice at all. Until Foxy, facing my indifference, became exasperated and threatened to leave far away. On the surface, I said indifferently that it didn't matter. Actually, my heart was screaming, "Keep him," so I followed my own heart. Embraced his waist and pressed him onto the bed. Turns out one can love without knowing it, but it doesn't matter. I will have a very, very long time to spend this life with you. End.